Yeah, and I know that the airport there in Atlanta is the busiest airport in the world by traffic. How was your experience getting in and posting up there at the College Football Hall of Fame?
The issue wasn't on the Atlanta side. The issue was on the Austin side yesterday, where I get to the airport at 11 for a 1 o'clock flight, and 3+ hours later, we were finally taking off. So I got to become really familiar with the chair massages and Noble Sandwich Company at Bergstrom yesterday. But once we got here, it was really cool. A friend picked me up, hung out at his place for a little bit, and then got a decent night's sleep. And I got to tell you, E, I don't know if you've ever been to the College Football Hall of Fame before, which is where we are set up this week. It is a really cool spot. Right now I'm watching Greg Sanky speak from the podium down below where the radio row, or I guess it's called Digital Drive now, is. The SEC made sure that we've got some really cool surroundings for us this year versus the standard, and it wasn't a problem last year necessarily, but just being set up in a corridor in the Omni in Dallas like we were last year.
Yeah, I was interested to see that. And how is the College Football Hall of Fame in location to the Omni Hotel where we'll be posting up? Is it right across the street? Is it right there, or how's that commute?
Really close, literally a 50-step walk from the
nice.
edge of the hotel. Yeah, so it's easy to get there. Now, the one thing that I'll say, taking a little bit of off-air business on the air, unfortunately, I could not get your media credential today. You have to get that in person, which a lot of people were a bit confounded by. So hopefully you and Travis get here in time to grab your credentials, because otherwise we're going to have to figure out a way to bust you into the College Football Hall of Fame tomorrow morning to do your show.
Yeah, I'll be breaking windows. We'll be arrested on our first trip to Atlanta. But the Longhorns were in Atlanta last December for that SEC championship game. Then they were back for the win over Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. So the Longhorns know Atlanta very well, and the Longhorns contingent with Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian, Michael Taft, and Anthony Hill will roll in tomorrow. You maybe heard me when I brought you on, Trey. Safe to say LSU will be the featured attraction today, along with Greg Sankey and whatever news he breaks and makes here at this opening press conference as far as league business is concerned. But Brian Kelly, I don't think will step back from it either. I think he's going to have to embrace the idea that they're a playoff team, or he might be in jeopardy in Baton Rouge.
He is the purple-headed monster after all. We all know what color he gets when he gets really angry on the sideline. Ole Miss is an interesting team this year, and South Carolina may be the underdog in the conference this year. There is a team, you probably throw Florida in that category as well, a team that really could make some noise that might surprise some people before it's all said and done. Each one of these days has fascinating storylines. I mean, there's obviously a reason why the SEC considers itself a cut above the rest. It's not just about the teams at the top. It's those teams in the middle make for a very difficult gauntlet. And Texas, as I just heard you guys talking about, as weird as Texas' schedule is this year, they actually got it fairly easy other than traveling to Athens in terms of the estimated win totals by Vegas and the teams that Texas faces. I want to say they face the 7 teams predicted to finish the worst in the conference other than Georgia this year. Now, things can change, of course. Predictions are just that. Sports prognosticators are barely better than weather guessers when it comes to making their future predictions. But Texas does look like they get it a little bit easier than, say, in Oklahoma this year.
Yeah, well, it's the same schedule as last year, just flip the homes and homes. And so, yeah, Texas, there are those in and around the SEC who say they rigged it for Texas and favorable draw. But, when they made these schedules, you couldn't have predicted that Florida would be as down as they are. Oklahoma would be on the hard knocks that they're on. A&M, fire Jimbo Fisher, and so they're in a coaching change. That schedule looks a lot different, but does have Ohio State to start it, and then you're right, three very dominant, winnable games for the Longhorns. But the opener there after the bye week, I mentioned September 20th until November 1st for the home games, but after that September 20th game with Sam Houston State, or Sam Houston now, they don't like to be called State, there's a bye week for Florida, and that Florida-Oklahoma Kentucky Florida, Oklahoma back-to-back. Last year it was Oklahoma and then Georgia. This will be a challenge for Sark. You're right. You got to get your team up for those first 4 games, including the Ohio State monster game to start it. Then a bye week, and then it's Florida and Oklahoma in back-to-back weekends, before the kick to November. That will be very interesting. That'll be the Longhorns' first trip that I know of to Gainesville, Florida, to play in the Swamp. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you and I are a very similar thought there. I don't think I'm going to Texas OU this year, but I've been considering going to Gainesville because I think that is the underrated game on the schedule right now. And it is a bit concerning. I don't want to call it a trap necessarily because I know Steve Sarkisian has done a great job of having these guys focus week to week and to have the first SEC game happening on the road in a hostile environment like that. Speaking with Florida fans this offseason, they are very confident that this team can exceed preseason expectations. DJ Lagway back at quarterback. Of course, Billy Napier getting that one more run. He's in a sort of Joey McGuire type of situation for the Texas Tech fans listening right now, where they've given him all the resources and it's time for him to get it done this year. And I feel like they are going to overachieve to some degree, whether they're back here in Atlanta for the SEC championship game at the end of the year. That may be a bit of a stretch, but don't be surprised by that either. Florida was a very physical defense last year. Injuries caught up with them throughout the season. Of course, Texas caught them at a good time in Austin where they were playing a third string walk-on who was the former starting quarterback at Yale or something like that. I forget the specifics there, but that Florida game is one that I have circled on the calendar as if there's a game that Texas is losing other than Georgia and then maybe Ohio State as well to start the season, it might be that Florida game.
Yeah, those three really, really huge road trips, obviously, to Columbus. Longhorns have started their seasons with wins at Alabama and Michigan the last couple of years. That would be a heck of a kickstart just for September, obviously. And Paul Feinbaum on ESPN over the weekend or into last week guaranteed a Texas win in that ball game, which will fire up the Big Ten fans for sure coming off the national championship. But you're right about that. Real quick, Trey Elling is
real quick, Aaron. That game is not quite Michigan, but it does have a little bit of that feel, doesn't it? Where Ohio State is having to reload at so many different positions. Now they still have really good special players, all-American caliber players on each side of the ball. But Ohio State is a team that is going to be getting its footing that very first game. So even though Texas may also be that on offense, especially breaking a bunch of new guys in around Arch Manning, that defense, I think, is good enough that they're going to make life hell for that Ohio State offense.
Yeah, it's a winnable game. It is. I mean, and coaching continuity matters, and Sark has kept his staff together. Ryan Day and the Buckeyes cashed it in with the national championship, and they will arguably have the two best players on the field with Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. At the same time, new coordinator on offense, new coordinator on defense, a lot of talent off to the NFL, and we'll see. That's going to be a hell of a game 47 days from today, and Paul Feinbaum guaranteeing that one. And it's fair to say, Trey, in the big picture of that schedule, there are 8 games that this Longhorn team should win. I'm not going to, the Aggie game's the Aggie game, Arkansas, but that's a game Texas should win at home. If they are what they are supposed to be. Arkansas and A&M at home should be a win. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Kentucky, obviously the Sam Houston, UTEP, San Jose State games, those should all be wins. You should be 8-0 in those games. It's going to come down to those other 4, right? And if you can go even 2-2 in the other 4, you're 10-2 and you're probably in the playoff.
Should we be more concerned about Texas traveling to Lexington, considering that everybody feels like this might be it for Mark Stoops in Lexington if he can't get it going again this year? But anytime people leave that Kentucky program for dead, that's when they tend to jump up and fight some of those bigger dogs in the conference.
I guess I'm to the point with Texas where I feel like Sark has this program where they're going to beat the teams they're supposed to beat. Remember when Matt got the program to that point where they're going to maybe a little bit more uncomfortable than you want it to be in some of these games, but the program is where Kentucky's losing their best players, like their receiver went to LSU. I mean, they're losing their guys through the portal, which makes it really tough to compete in the SEC, and they were at the bottom last year. But I get your point there, because that Kentucky game comes right after the Florida-Oklahoma kick, right? So can you get back up for one more tough one there? But yeah, to me, you look at the schedule, there should be 8 games the Texas Longhorns will be heavily favored in. You handle your business in those 8. It's going to come down to the other 4, which are the 3 road games we just talked about in the Oklahoma game. You split those, you're 10-2, and you're kind of where you want to be. Longhorns would like to be undefeated, obviously. That is the goal. Trey Elling is with us. He's live at our Radio Row location at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. That's where I'll be broadcasting live tomorrow and Wednesday and into Thursday. Excited to get there as well. Hey, real quick, as I watch Greg Sanky go through his press conference, what are your goals? I know you always have interviews you want to get and information you're trying to glean and bring to your audience and for yourself. What are the big questions you want to find answers to while you're there for 4 days in Atlanta?
I think we know pretty well that the coaches in this conference want to play a 9th conference game, and they also don't want automatic qualifiers. I want to see if Greg Sanky and some of the other leadership in college football that is tied to the SEC is starting to shift their tune on that as well, insisting that something more needs to be done if the SEC is going to shift to 9 conference games, whether that's automatic qualifiers or changing how the college football playoff teams are selected. I'd like to see the SEC get on board with the 5 plus what will ultimately be 11 model. I think it's probably 5 plus 7 right now. Everybody else in college football outside of the Big Ten seems to be on board with that. And considering that the SEC and Big Ten have such an advantage financially over these other conferences just based on their TV deals alone, to give even more of an advantage, I think, is a little bit ridiculous. And if you're going to do that, why not just go ahead and create some sort of more clear-cut delineation between the haves and have-nots in college football?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. A lot of news will be broken. Obviously, Big 12 had their media days last week, and now here comes SEC, Big 10 to follow, ACC as well. But obviously, Greg Sanky, a powerful voice, Trey.
And Erin, one other thing that I want to talk about, and I had the chance to discuss this with Joey McGuire.
Yeah, you were up there at Big 12, right?
Yeah, Big 12. That was a lot. I have to show a ton of appreciation for the Big 12. I know that UT is not in the Big 12 anymore, but they provide a lot of accessibility, not just to the hometown broadcasters, but really to anybody who wants to speak with another coach or players or Brett Yormark. They do a great job of allowing that. So I'm very grateful for that. But in talking with Joey McGuire, who his Texas Tech team has obviously made big headlines this offseason with how they've gone and spent in the transfer portal, one thing that I think that leadership in college football is trying to figure out right now is a way to get the transfer portal to calm down a little bit in terms of the player movement. And Joey McGuire specifically said he believes that college football is on the verge now that these schools can pay student athletes, that we're going to have more legally binding contracts that will do one of two things: either make it more difficult for a kid to go from one school to another, or if a kid chooses to do so, there may be some sort of buyout clause. We always hear it talked about, well, coaches can go from one school to another and they don't have to suffer some sort of sitting out for a year penalty. Kids should be able to have that right as well. I don't disagree with that necessarily, but coaches that go from one school to another, there is a buyout that has to be paid to make that happen. That's something that can help to enrich some of those smaller schools who are losing talent to the bigger programs. And it's also maybe something that will have a kid considering whether or not he really wants to go there versus being a little bit more patient, not necessarily thinking so grass is always greener, and maybe trying to put the work in to get on the field for his respective school, whether it's Texas or someplace else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we've talked about that here on Game Time, that the transfers won't be as plentiful because they are under contract and they have a commitment that they have to live up to. And if they don't, they've got to pay it back or have some type of buyout fee for sure. Good stuff right there, Trey. Trey, we appreciate it. Look forward to hanging with you the next few days. And I know Sam Acho is going to join us from our Radio Row location here coming up in about 30 minutes, the lifetime Longhorn. Get his thoughts on the Horns in 20 and 25 and the SEC in general. So thanks for setting that up, and look forward to seeing you when I get there this afternoon.
Acho is going to be with you in person tomorrow.
Oh, he's not today?
Not today. So if you need somebody at that time, I'm happy to jump back on once we get through the Sanky press conference, but you just let me know.
Very good. No, that's cool. That's a programming note. There you go. Sam Acho will be tomorrow from Radio Row when I sit there next to him. Thank you, Trey. Trey Elling live from the Sport of Life there every afternoon, 6 to 7 after Jeff and Ed. And he is live in Atlanta, as I will be after today's show. I'm going to wrap it up and get on up there. So looking forward to it.